Good evening, hello, and welcome to Follow Everton. This is the Everton versus Wolves match preview. I have Basil alongside me. How are you, Baz?
Fine, thank you. How are you doing?
I'm not too bad. Thanks for coming on. You're looking forward to the game on Sunday, or are you dreading it?
I don't know. It's good to be going back to Goodison, isn't it? Not having an away fixture. That's just an automatic depressing weekend. So
Please tell me you've not lost
there's a
him straight
glimmer of
away.
hope, isn't there?
Have we lost him?
Hmm?
Sorry, you froze.
Did I?
You completely froze. Yeah, I don't know whether that's just me or you. Sorry. You said you were looking. You were happy it was a home
I
fixture.
said
Not an
it was
away
a glimmer
fixture.
of hope that could not ruin the weekend as much as if you had an away fixture, which is a guaranteed loss. So there is some hope at Goodison with the way that we've played the last few weeks.
Well, I would like to see Everton play a little bit more pragmatic away from home and try and not play into opposition hands like they did against Spurs, Southampton, and Newcastle, really. And you've seen, I watched the other teams in the relegation fight. I thought Newcastle battle really well, and the other teams have got something about them, but ultimately, they're not good enough. And I think it is between us, Burnley, Leeds, and Brentford as to who will go down with Watford and Norwich. The home form is obviously going to be massively important, and I think we're going to play on the front foot in these games at home. But away from home, we definitely need to be more pragmatic and not be afraid. The problem is we haven't really got the defense to play a low block or even to just try and defend and nick a goal. And we're not really outscoring teams, so it's difficult to know what to do. But at home, it's quite a clear message, isn't it, Basil? Go and press, go and attack, and
it's it's a bit worrying, isn't it, when you think go and send them out, go and send them to press, when you know what's behind them is so poor. But it's the only way we can make advantage of what is the Goodison kind of feel factor in the crowd. If they try and sit off, they will just kind of, it'll just become flat and they won't make the most of it. So they've got to press and they've got to be kind of compact in a way, but also press as a unit. What we saw at Spurs was random pressing and huge gaps, and that
fairness,
can't happen.
Dave, you're right. It wasn't quite random. There was like a front four pressing, and then the problem was Spurs always had an outball, didn't they? And they could get into that midfield, and then you've only got the two snails in there. Yeah, they've got Kane dropping in to outnumber you, and the problem. I don't want to dwell too much on it, but they were very good on transition. They basically allowed Everton's defenders to play up from the back, to bring the ball forward, wait for them to give it away because they inevitably had no options given the amount of Spurs players behind the ball and their lack of distribution quality. And then they nick the ball and swiftly get at our back line and into the spaces. And, it could have been a much bigger scoreline. In fairness, at home, and we'll talk about team news in a moment, we will play on the front foot, I imagine. We'll talk about Wolves in a moment, but should we talk about team news first and foremost? Should I give you the team news, Dave?
Yeah.
So Everton will be pleased to know that Demarai Gray is returning He's been training all week, so he'll be involved on Sunday. And also Ben Godfrey is, back after a 3-week or 4-week layoff. So that's really good news, isn't it? You've got two massive players. They've got speed, they've got athleticism, they've got talent. Ben Godfrey and Demarai Gray coming back in. Obviously, Yerry Mina's still injured. I think he's the only real notable absence there at the moment. Obviously, we've got to try and inject quite some flair and creativity into the team because obviously with Sigurdsson gone, Luca Dean gone, and James gone, I think that's where we've really been struggling. There isn't really anyone cultured enough in there. But the question is, how do you fit Anthony Gordon, Richarlison, Calvert-Lewin, and Demarai Gray all in the same team whilst having Decore, Allen, and Van der Beek in the midfield? It's a difficult one. But the team news is looking strong, isn't it? It's good to have a full plethora of players, more or less.
Yeah, it's good. I mean, you've already said they've got pace, those two, and that's vitally important in this slow side. I mean, Godfrey hasn't had his best season, but one thing he will have is his pace, and he can recover out of situations and get us out of trouble. Once Holgate and Keane looked behind them and the ball slipped, there's no getting back as the Wolves players kind of go on through. But Damari Gray's been our best player, hasn't he, this season? So to get him back is a huge boost.
One thing I would mention is that Calvert-Lewin and Damari Gray haven't played together since the opening 3 games, and I would have thought that Damari Gray, with his fantastic acceleration, his trickery, his ability to beat players and whip the ball in, across the face of goal, that it would be some bread and butter sort of service for Calvert-Lewin. And I know Kevin in the comments, evening Kevin, Mark, and the others watching, Kevin's going straight in and saying you drop DCL, but really, I think if you do that, and you bring in Damari Gray, and there isn't a focal point, Richarlison makes really good runs down the sides of central defenders, but he isn't a real target man, is he? So I'd be inclined to keep Calvert-Lewin in there and bring Damari Gray in. But the team news is looking good in terms of who's coming back. So in terms of team selection and then tactics, I'm going to ask you for your team. You've got full options here, so bring it up onto the screen.
There's a lot of options, isn't there? I mean, I think back to when we went away to Wolves, which we were both at, and I was sat right in the corner, and I couldn't see very much, but I could see we were absolutely dreadful that day, and we played.
I was there.
Yeah, I know. We played the 4-4.
It was another, but it was David. Sorry, that was another mistake. That was Ben Godfrey's back pass to Pickford getting intercepted. That was another.
We played a 4-4-2, if you remember, and we were totally dominated in the first half, and we had to switch. Delph came on at half time, and we needed the 3 in midfield, and it makes me question, is that a good reason to play 3 in the midfield, or is our back line so poor that we, just got to play 5 for security? I mean, we are at home. I mean, firstly, I considered this with playing the back 5 to match them up to make sure there's no gap, so we can press one-on-one. Everyone knows their man. And can stick with them, but ultimately it means playing somebody who's a bit shitty at the moment. It means putting a Keane or someone who's not trusted, perhaps.
Could Coleman play right centre back, David? Sorry, could Coleman not play on the right of that 3 and Patterson on the right wing back?
He's not going to play Patterson. This is more what this is how I see him playing, as in Lampard, rather than how I might select. Personally, I'd be looking more at the 3 in the midfield. And I think Godfrey's the best left back we've got, to be honest, in this situation when we're in a relegation scrap. I think Coleman will play well at home. I just wouldn't play him away because he's been terrible.
Bring back the first one for me. Let me give you my thoughts on that. I think Gordon. Obviously, there you've got no Damari Gray. That would be one thing I'd ask you about. Michaelenko. Van der Beek not in that option, and no Dele Alli. I mean, you've got loads of players, but none of them have done anything to justify being included. Michaelenko, another one who hasn't shown me anything yet. He's looked a bit reserved, you should say. I think he's a bit unwilling to do anything, but I think you could look at that maybe, but I'd be having Coleman instead of Keane. I don't want Holgate either. That's the problem. I think Coleman on the right side of defence and Patterson coming in. But I don't think he'd go at that. I don't think he's going to go with a 5. I think there'd be murder. Show me the next team.
I drew the first team, and then I thought this. I felt more confident with this, but
I bet you any money that's the team.
Well, I've dropped Calvert-Lewin there. You've got to drop somebody, haven't you? I just think you can't drop Gordon. I think Gray come back in. And he's fresh. And I just think Calvert-Lewin just looks a little bit out of sorts. Maybe he'd be better coming off the bench.
Dave, the problem is if we go with a 4-4-2 and you've got Calvert-Lewin and Richarlison up front and Gray and Gordon on the wings and Decore and Allen, that is kind of your obvious 4-4-2. There isn't really anything coming from fullback there for me. And Wolves have Jimenez who'll drop into midfield and occupy the central areas, and they'll effectively have 4 or 5 in that, overloading us. So if we do 2, I'm not saying it's going to be like when we went to Wolves and we had Gabamin in there who's like a walking stick personified. He was hung out to dry in a poor midfield. But I look at that and I think if we do the 4-4-2, it's really difficult. Then De Gray and Gordon tuck in and they're quite narrow. They don't stay wide, and then they're limiting the service and what they can do. And that relies on your fullbacks to get forward. And I'm not sure Godfrey and Coleman are quite what you need. I do think Godfrey probably is the best left back at the club at the moment, which is ridiculous, to be honest with you. certainly defensively. But it's question marks for Lampard, really. I mean, you touched on a good point with the not having, two in midfield because we will get overloaded. But the three there means that Calvert-Lewin misses out. So I'd be intrigued to know what people think in the comments. Let us know what you think. What sort of team would you be going with? What do you think of what David's proposing or David's options? Have you got any others? Have you got any other teams?
No, that's the teams. I mean, yeah, there's a lot of questions, isn't there, about it?
Yeah.
I do feel what you've just been saying. The back, the five at the back situation, I don't think it really suits the players as much because you're asking Coleman and Michaelenko to do a lot of kind of work, especially going forward. And I don't think Michaelenko offers anything going forward from what I've seen. And Coleman's past it. So, by the time you do that, it seems weaker than the situation of the back four, where you can tell Godfrey and Coleman to stick tight on the Wolves attackers, make sure they don't get past them, and know that you've got Gray and Gordon can stay out wide, and tell Donny and Doucouré to push into the box. I mean, whichever way you play,
the only problem with that, David,
weakness in the centre of midfield, in the DM sort of in between the lines there, you're always going to have a lot of space because Alan can't cover it, and you're going to have crap centre backs.
That's what I'm worried. Bring that back up on the screen and let me tell you why this is going to fail. Because if Doucouré and Donny both go forward and you're kind of like attacking with 5 and defending with 5, Alan is like runs, like he's like the 86 bus to town. It's stopping every 2 seconds. He's so slow. And I can just see if when we lose the ball and it breaks down, Wolves are going to be really quick in transition through midfield like they were at the Molineux Stadium. And Alan, just as he showed against Spurs, he can't do it all on his own. I think Doucouré needs to be more disciplined for the remainder of the season and do what he did under Ancelotti, which is break up play and use his strength and quality, and then try when the occasion suits to be that third man run. Because he's not going to get 10 goals a season. He's not even going to get 8 or 6. I don't think he's not technically good enough. And he's not great with his back to goal. So I'd have him coming from deeper. I'd have him sitting probably with Alan, just to give him the more legs in there. I do think you can bring some pace in with Godfrey, Patterson, keeping Holgate in there. I think then you've got 3 fairly quick players, and you've got pace up front. So there are some positives, aren't there?
Yeah, there are positives to the side. It's just there's a huge negative is the back four. I mean, whichever way you play it, they're just not going to get away with that.
And in fairness, Godfrey hasn't been good this season, has he? He can't jump. If you watch him defending the set pieces, I mean, for me, we'll talk about predictions, but I just anticipate more mistakes because it's like a horrible cycle of make a mistake, concede from a set piece, play poorly, make mistakes, concede from a set piece, play poorly, and it goes round and round. Looking at the league table with us in 17th place and Wolves are up in 8th place, Wolves have actually got an outside chance of Europe. I mean, I'm looking at that, 43 points, same amount of games played as Man United in 5th and 4 points behind them. You could see them, getting into the top 7, probably qualifying for, I don't think they will. I think United at West Ham and Spurs and Arsenal will have a little bit too much for them, but it's a massive achievement to change manager and to think that they could be in the question for Europa League. And they beat Watford 3-0. It's not going to be an easy game, but 4-0, there you go. The thing is, we've lost to the likes of Watford and Norwich. We've lost to Newcastle, Brighton. We've lost to pretty much everyone. We've lost 15 games. And you'd probably say I'd rather play at a Wolves than someone really scrapping at the bottom or someone really fighting for the top 4. I think. But then again, I mean, look at those teams in that bracket where you'd say they're mid-table, not really doing anything. Leicester, Southampton, Villa, Wolves, Brighton. I don't think Brighton are great, but the other teams have all been much better than us and seem to have more of a plan. Talking about Wolves, their team news is they still have Ki Jana Hoover and Nelson Semedo from Barcelona, the right back, unavailable. Willie and Johnny are back. They played against Watford, of course, back in time to place Everton. And Mark Lawrenson saying that Everton will win 1-0, interestingly enough, which means Wolves will
They'll
lose. Now,
lose.
ultimately, David, Everton have got international footballers across the pitch, players who've cost big money and individually would go elsewhere and look brilliant. I've got no doubt about it. Richarlison, Gray, Calvert-Lewin, Decore, Godfrey. There's quite a few more. They shouldn't be in the mix for relegation, should they? And do you think they need to treat this as the big team at home, go out, put pressure on, play on the front foot, and play like they should really be doing? Or do you expect Everton to be a little bit more nervous? We're literally, I genuinely think we'll be in the bottom three going into this game because Burnley play tomorrow against Brentford, and I think they'll beat Brentford because I think Brentford will get sucked into it. So
I think Norwich
probably go into this game in the bottom three.
Leeds will probably beat Norwich because I know Leeds are poor, but Norwich are shocking. So
not good, really, is it?
We're gonna
We've got to win.
It's a vital 3 points to keep up with Leeds. It's 100% must win. I mean, you look at the fixtures going forward. This is the sort of game you have to win, and for me, it's a real worry because I think there's half of me that says we'll come out there, we'll assert some dominance, we'll have a good start, we'll press them, we'll win the ball, we'll create chances, we'll score a couple of goals, and we'll make hard work of it, but we'll get across the line. The reality in me says we're really poor defensively. We're going to get exposed like we did against Spurs because Wolves play quite a similar setup. If you look at them, it's the same 3-4-3, the same target man player with a couple of small, fast, tricky players off them in Chan and Podence. And I think that could cause us real damage on the counter-attack.
They're just going to wait for us to make mistakes, and then I think they'll drop up, drop deep-ish, mid-block to low block, wait for us to make mistakes because we can't play out from the back, and then hit us at speed.
They've conceded, I think, the third least goals or fourth least goals in the league. So they don't let much away. And what they did against Watford, from what I saw in the highlights, was basically just capitalise when they made mistakes. I know Foster made a bad mistake, but that they're gonna just eat us up if we give them the ball away on the edge of our, in transition.
Look, Ancelotti saw that Everton were a team that needed to play low block, counter-attack, and play for set pieces. I think Frank Lampard doesn't want to be living in the past. I think it's going to be a 4-3-3 or a 4-4-2. I think we've got enough going forward. We have got quality players. They're not gelling. I think they missed the link of the likes of Sigurdsson. They do genuinely miss him. I watched the game highlights from the 5-4 victory against Spurs at Goodison, and Sigurdsson ran the game. He looked fantastic. And you lost a player of his quality, and you've lost a player in James as well. So they're missing the link, I think, really, from midfield. I don't think Decore technically is quite that. Van der Beek, I hope, could be that. And Gomez is finished for me. You've got options. I think we're going to go and press. I think we'll play on the front foot. We've got enough pace with Godfrey coming back in that back line. And if you can bring in Patterson or do something and bring in the pace.
Patterson is anywhere
near it. No, but you can't do much worse than
which you want, but
David, you're forgetting Coleman was guilty of conceding 3 goals week in, week out.
I know.
The thing with me, he looks really good in a couple of games, and you think, wow, he's actually the best defender. He's still got it. He's still fantastic. Doesn't get forward, but he's, no one gets past him. And he does this stupid things. Why is it coming back at me? His dad in the room with the iPad or something, watching it. Something stupid like, just passing it out, running and just giving it away, and it's always almost every game like a clown. And I really don't want to see Michael Keane play. I don't think there'll be much choice because I don't think Holgate and Godfrey could play together. I think that's a bit of a strange sort of weak pairing of
get bullied.
Yeah. But Holgate's a championship centre back, and Michael Keane, I can count on one hand how many good games he's had. But being asked to actually defend and do anything other than stand, in a row of 4 bowling pins. I don't want to see him at all, but he's going to play.
Look, we're going to go out there on the front foot because ultimately we are in a relegation battle. As you said, we could be in the bottom 3 by that point. So the motivation will be to win the game. We can't go out there and think, well, let's see what Wolves are like. Let's soak it in. That would have been Rafa's tactic. Sit back, see what they're like, see if we can nick a goal. Look, we need to win the game. So whether we win it, we've got to try and put our energy into
£600 million squad.
If we lose it from quality, pure quality alone and not effort and not mistakes, then so
Some
be
of these
it.
comments are brilliant. David, sorry.
What?
I'm just thinking we're going to go into this game in the relegation battle. We will have 4 games in hand by then on some of the other teams, 12 points. There's still 39 points on the field. And really, Everton in the past would probably pick up 1.5 points per game. I think really 1 point per game would be enough now, 35 points. But Leeds have got Calvin Phillips coming back and Patrick Bamford as well. So I think they'll improve. I think Brentford will be the ones that really get sucked in. I don't think they've got the quality, but they have
Brentford they are 6
Ericsson.
points. I think Brentford are 6 points ahead of us. I know we've got the games in hand, but they're 6 points. That's a lot of points when you think how slow we are picking up points.
Easier to pick up points on Queen's Drive. Right, guys, I know there's loads of comments coming in. I just want to say hello, Mark, to Kevin, to Sean, Dave. Good evening, Paul, as well. Benny, thanks for coming on. Barry, Chris, Kevin, good evening to you. We've got someone from the Leeds fan, Owen, Connor. Should we read some of the comments out? Then do some predictions. Look, our previews, they are a little bit off the cuff. We try our best. I hope you enjoy it. If you're new here, make sure you subscribe. We're nearly at 1,000 subscribers now. We've got 920 odd. It's a slow burner, but I think we deserve to reach that. So if you're watching and you haven't already subscribed, please subscribe. And of course, just like the video as well and comment. We love it. Match reaction on Sunday. I'll be hosting that. I'll try and get Dan on. And also Mr. Mabsy or anyone who wants to come on from the channel, but I expect it'll be Dan and Mabsy for that one. Mark says, we haven't lost under Frank at home yet. The City game, I'm not counting. We were robbed of a chance of a point by the scandalous officials. And I think we'll beat Wolves and maybe Newcastle. Well, I'll be honest with you, Mark. I don't think we'll beat Newcastle because they're on such a good run of form and they look like a proper side. They're doing similar things, dropping deep, waiting for the mistake and counter-attacking with pace. And they've got the commitment, the enthusiasm and the intensity. It's worrying because we need 6 points from these 2 games. We really do. Kevin's saying I'll be dropping DCL. He's not fit and offers nothing. Well, apparently he is 100% fit now, according to Lampard. You forget about Iwobi, David. That's another one. You've got a lot of players available. Townsend, Iwobi, Damari Gray, Gordon, Van der Beek, Gomez, Allen, Doucouré. You're only missing Fabian Delph, who I don't count him anyway, the amount of times he's played, and Tom Davis, who's out for the season. He'd give Ali a go. There's no excuses now. There's enough players and enough quality. There's no excuses with injuries. This is all on the manager and the players on the pitch. Sean saying we are shocking and we don't know what team is going to turn up. We've got no grit or bravery. I'd argue we did show that against City. And, these fine margins like that fucking refereeing decision, could really knock you down. And it's hard to keep picking yourself up week in, week out. Especially when losing's a habit. Dave Weston, friend of the show, saying he played DCL on the bench and Richarlison up front with Gray, Van der Beek, Doucouré, Allen, Gordon, Seamus, Colgate, Godfrey, and Mikalenko. I don't like the defense. Even putting Mikalenko in there, it doesn't really do anything for me.
Isn't that 10 players?
He's so passive, Mikalenko. I know he's only played a few games, but he's got Pickford.
It's a 5 in the midfield, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mark saying you go with Pickford, Coleman, or Patterson. Okay, very decisive. Keane, Holgate, Godfrey, Allen, Doucouré, Van der Beek, Gray, Gordon, and Ritchie. Paul saying, I bet they've got their head stuck down the bog in school. Who watches this and why? I live in Allerton, mate. You're not bad. Right. I'm just going to block him. He's got nothing better to do. He's been blocked. Try. You don't think that's quite funny, though, when someone comes in? Bet you them.
What's this stuff going around about Wolves at the moment? And there seems to be a lot of internal debates about fans and stuff. I don't understand it at the moment. We've got enough problems going along.
You know what? People just want an excuse to moan, don't they?
Just need a win. Just need a win to freshen up everyone and make everyone happier.
I wouldn't mind someone giving me stick, but he can't fucking spell and his grammar's worse than a kid. Maybe he's the one got his head stuck down the toilet in school. Probably thinks Kirby's within the Liverpool City boundary. The Wool thing is a bit farcical. You know, people are kind of just arguing with themselves on social media, aren't they?
I don't know what's going on. I don't get it.
Not bothered. The only thing for me about that is maybe to do with rivalry. You know, if you live in the city, I mean, all of my mates, more or less, got a couple who are Blues, but my missus is a Blue. But pretty much everyone is a Liverpool fan. And living in the city, in the Allerton area, whilst there is most people of a certain age, I'd say 40s, over 40s are all Evertonians. You meet them everywhere. But the kids are all Reds. They're insufferable. And I think maybe just the only difference between, you know, in the city and being an Everton Wool or whatever you want to call them, or not being in the city is just you don't feel that rivalry quite as intensely.
You get well, obviously I'm at uni. You get a lot of the uni students. They just jump on the Liverpool bandwagon, and a few seconds of probing, and you know they don't know anything.
They're not genuine fans.
They're just pretending.
Benny, good evening, Benny. Saying Coleman right centre back, Arobi White wing back. That's going back to Carlos. Did that at Fulham, did he? I think we won a couple of games like that. I don't see that happening, Benny. But thanks for your suggestion, of course. Much valued and appreciated. Sean doesn't want DCL fit. He doesn't playing. He doesn't think he's fit. He wants Gray and Gordon on the wings. Richarlison at front. Barry saying, you know, the same thing. This seems to be a common theme with people saying that they want DCL on the bench.
When does Ali get his opportunity, do you think?
When he's in the ring against George Foreman. When he came on against Spurs, he was neat and tidy, but he just looks slow and lethargic, and he's not going to beat a player. He's not going to make a good pass. He's not. Just another man, isn't he?
I find he always comes on and without Calvert-Lewin on, and I think what worked so well was when he played with Kane, and he was really close in terms of his on the pitch, where he was on the pitch to Kane, not coming off the second ball. Obviously, Kane's kind of evolved now into kind of doing both roles, but Calvert-Lewin doesn't do both roles. He can only play the target man role. So if you got Dele Alli just off him, picking up balls in dangerous areas, you would have thought he could play well. But I've seen him play with Richarlison. I haven't seen much of it yet. I don't think the link-up's there.
You make a good point. I think Calvert-Lewin and Calvert-Lewin could work really well with Dele Alli. Calvert-Lewin could maybe run the channels a little bit more and make some space, pull the defenders away for Dele Alli to run into. You've also got Gray running in behind. The problem is Richarlison really is best up front or on the right, I think. It doesn't really work for him on the left. Looks a bit too slow. And on the right, there's not really any crosses for him to come onto and head in like from Dean anymore. So I don't know how you can fit them all in. If I'm brutally honest with you, I really don't know. But Dele Alli and Calvert-Lewin, in theory, like you said, could be the Kane and Ali combination from a few years ago. And you've got players around them with pace and quality. Chris Thomas is saying players seem too scared to tackle. And Donny is too much of a luxury. That's from Benny. And Kevin saying, he's just come on now. Evening, Kevin. This is from Leeds, a fan. He's saying, I can see us losing on Sunday to Norwich. I'd be surprised if you lost to Norwich. Not many teams. I hope you do. I'm sorry, but I hope you do, because I don't think Norwich will stay up. But
I don't know. I think they'll find a way to win. I don't know. Is that a home game or an away game? I'm not sure.
Evening, Owen. Dave saying I can count on one hand how many good games Michael Keane has had. That's quite funny. Connor's saying Michael Keane won't be in the squad due to off-field issues. Connor, I don't think this is quite true, mate. I think Frank Lampard said he had a fever.
Mm.
But I do worry with him that confidence and mental health and all these other external factors. He's a nice guy, Michael Keane, but I do worry that these external factors probably are influencing him. And at 29, he should be in the absolute peak of his career, but he's a defender without much pace. He's not great 1v1, and he almost needs to be playing in a certain way to be effective. And
I think this will be proven tomorrow because on Sunday, because if he plays, we'll know it's not off-field issues, because off-field issues, they don't just go away in 5 minutes. I think if it's just a fever, he's got to come back in, hasn't he? Because he's the number one centre-back apart from Mina. All the managers we've had in the last 4 or 5 years.
He's well with Mina.
Yeah, he does play well with Mina because Mina does all the defending.
And then Godfrey beside him. Barry's saying we signed 2 fullbacks that play for their national team but can't get in our team. It's trust, isn't it?
It's Ukraine and Scotland. They're 4-star teams on FIFA, aren't they?
David, yeah, worse than us on FIFA. Should be on FIFA. Should be worse rating the national teams than us. The thing for me, I don't want to sound really critical. I said it when we signed him, but we signed in a player who doesn't speak any English from the Ukraine league in a side that dominates. For me, that's not the way to go about it, because you need an English speaker. You need someone who's... I just don't like the fact he's played for only the one team in there that dominates in Ukraine, and it's not going to used to be playing in this sort of environment. Yeah, he's got potential. We haven't seen anything from him yet. I know he's got all these issues, which are obviously terrible for him. But he can't get in the Everton team, which is a worry. Because why sign him in January? Ironically, we could have gone on a free transfer now, because clubs in Ukraine, players in Ukraine can rip the contracts up and leave for free. So we could have saved ourselves 22 million. Obviously, I know that's probably not the right way of looking at it in the circumstances, but why did we sign him in January if he's not going to play? That's the question. And there's the same with Patterson. Maybe we needed to act on Patterson, but it's just the same situation. He's stuck behind Taverner at Rangers, and now stuck behind Coleman. Eric's saying about Kenny nailed in both games.
Nailed.
Passion, aggression, and leadership is what needed. We got the goals, of course. Kevin saying you got blocked. I've never blocked. I don't think I've ever blocked anyone before. But if someone's going to be an absolute just tit, just coming through these comments, should have signed Matt Target. Yeah.
Yeah, we're going to need another left back. That's a depressing thing. I think Michaelenko, he defensively, he's looked okay, actually. Most of the time, he had a few...
Doesn't get near the winger, doesn't stop the cross, doesn't tackle.
He had a few iffy bits in the first couple of games, which cost us a goal or two. But I think, I think he can be a solid defender. I don't know what he can offer going forward. He put one good ball in like 4 matches, so I think...
Look at Matty Cash at Villa, David. And they're not even doing that well. They're mid-table. He beats players. He's quick. He's strong. He scores the goals. He tackles. He's tenacious. He passes well. Our fullbacks are dreadful. Our centre-halves are dreadful. Our midfielders are dreadful. You're meant to be able to pass the ball in midfield and run and tackle. And look at us. And I watched those games. I thought Villa and Leeds, Villa so much better than us. Newcastle looks so much better than us. Southampton looks so much better than us. And it's a real worry. Can I get your predictions then, Dave?
I'll go for 2-1 to Everton, because I think we can get over the line. I think we'll make a mistake at some point. We'll give them a goal, but I think we can score, and I think we can hurt them with the quality we have. We just can't afford for it to be like a 3-2 to them. Let them getting free chances here, there, and everywhere, and make it a battle for ourselves that we surely can't, outscore them if we make too many mistakes.
2-1 is a good prediction. I'd mimic you there. I'd say that, my heart's going to go with the 2-1. And if I'm going to be extra negative, I'm going to say 3-0 to Wolves. I'm listening to your show and you're saying exactly the same thing as Leeds YouTube channels. Fab. Give us a subscription. Kevin's agreeing with you. Is right, Basil 2-1 to us. Okay.
I hope so. Anyway, I really do. We need the points desperately. And as you say, I think Newcastle will come in fine form, won't they? The only positive for Newcastle, well, for us, for Newcastle, is they're playing Chelsea, I think. And if Chelsea can teach them a lesson.
Dave, we've got players in Calvert-Lewin that should, and Richarlison, be able to bully defenders, win headers, and score inside the
They're
box.
so inconsistent, aren't they?
Yeah, they should be able to do that. We also have players in Damari Gray and Anthony Gordon and others like Doucouré who should be able to play really quick on the counter-attack. So either way, if we go low block or if we defend, we should be able to counter at speed and exploit the space. We need the space to attack and get the best out of those players. If we have to play on the front foot, we have to see Calvert-Lewin and Richarlison get into good areas and get delivery into the box. And I think that's a really good assessment from myself. Dave, thank you for coming on. If you're new to the channel, please like and subscribe. Of course, just like anyway. Final comment from Michael. He's saying, I think we'll get 1 point versus Wolves and 3 versus Newcastle. Would you take 4 points right now?
Yeah.
A point against Wolves and a win against Newcastle, really?
Probably would at this stage. Yeah.
Yeah.
4 because points. every time we play at home, or it doesn't matter where we are, the refs against us. You know, everything goes against us. If you just hand me the points now, yeah, I would take them.
Dave, if you look at Everton's games recently, Southampton handball, clear handball, Romeo should have been a pen. City should have got a pen against City, 1-1. That's a draw. John Joe Shelby, red card at Goodison. Handballs getting missed against Spurs. Then you look at Liverpool. Lukaku's tiny offside. It was his armpit or his shoulder or something in the cup final. They should have won that. Offside. You know, Naby Keita, 2-footed. Well, got his studs up into the other player's groin. I think there was another incident in the game. The Mane, the keeper obviously blazing over. When do you ever see that? A goalkeeper taking a pen and then blasting it like a goal kick? This is the look. On one hand, at Everton is diddly squat, and then look at it across the park. And then it continued. Mane's goal given against West Ham. And West Ham are a good team. Probably should have got a point in the end for sure. And then they played again the other day, didn't they? Liverpool into Milan. I didn't watch the game, but I heard it was a red card again. As it went 2-1.
No, it wasn't. They gave a red card, and apparently it was soft. Alexis Sanchez.
Yeah. For the same thing that Keita got away with.
The game.
The same thing that Liverpool have been getting away with in a few games. There was one against Ricardo Pereira against Leicester and one of the games and didn't get booked. But all I'm going to say is just look over there, you know, and see the level of the refereeing and the way there's favoritism towards certain teams. Put it that way. I think genuinely they probably want us relegated. You know, it creates a story.
Yeah, it's a big story.
We're not doing anything.
Yeah.
Right. I'm going to wrap things up. Be sure to subscribe, like the video. Thanks, guys. Take care, and I'll see you on Sunday. Thank you.